Hi, I'm Laura Lee Yates, and I'm going to read a little piece called Teach Your Children Well. When Vincent was only 4 and I was almost 6, our parents drove us to the Great Lake. We'd never been to a movie, only to the dentist. We'd never seen water bigger than the bathtub my brother and I shared on Saturday nights. During the rest of the week, Mother gave us spit baths if we smudged our faces or scrubbed our hands with lava soap when we tried to dig to Africa. Gramps and Granny Becker had gone there as missionaries, but they hadn't been able to save the heathens from going to hell, even though it was their life's work. Mother says she can't remember anything about Africa, even though she was already 5 when they moved back to America. I remember things from when I was only 2. Sometimes I think I remember being born, how Mother screamed, but that's not possible. Africa had to be more interesting than where we lived, but Vincent and I could never dig deep enough, so the trip to the Great Lake sounded like a pretty good adventure. Except all the way there, Vincent and I took turns throwing up. Daddy and Mother both smoked Winstons, even though Jesus didn't smoke. Whenever we asked to do anything different, Mother always responded, "And where in the Bible does it say Jesus ever played baseball, young lady?" Or, "Did you ever hear Jesus use that nasty word, young man?" If we could quote chapter and verse, then we were allowed. We were good readers, and both of us knew long passages of the New Testament by heart, but it never helped us get anything we really wanted. "Jesus is not my personal savior," Vincent said, "but only late at night after he'd crawled into my bed and curled around me tight as the shell of a snail, the wet Midwestern heat sticking him to my nightgown like snail slime." On the way to the Great Lake, Vincent and I took turns littering each new neighborhood with little piles of chewed up Cheerios. Daddy kept stopping the Edsel just in time, but after we'd used up all our breakfasts, Mother told Daddy to keep right on driving. We'd get used to it, she said, if we'd stop turning around to look at matters that didn't concern us, like the big red cow trying to ride piggyback on a smaller black cow. Instead of sitting up straight, Vincent sank lower and lower till I had to lift him to the window when it was his turn. By the time we crossed the county line, both of us had dropped onto the raggedy seats of the Edsel. There we made one of our solemn vows. When we grew up, we would never smoke. If we broke our word, buzzards could eat our flesh till we were nothing but skeletons. We'd seen the neighbor's cat after it was picked clean, and we weren't about to let that happen to us. The lake was bigger than all the water I'd seen in my whole life mixed together. I guess I expected it to be blue, but it was browny green like Mother's eyes. While Daddy parked the Edsel, Mother stubbed out her cigarette and arranged her floppy pink hat with the polka dots. "Before we go into the water," she said, "I want you to listen very carefully." I figured she was going to quote from the New Testament about the time Jesus walked on the water. "Do you children remember Jonah, how he was eaten by the whale?" During Old Testament, Vincent only moved his finger down the columns of print, but I let the words carry me along. Some verses I even memorized. When I began one Sunday morning recitation from the Book of Solomon, Mother said I should be ashamed. So I was. "Jonah," Mother said, "did not obey his parents." I couldn't remember Jonah having parents, but I paid attention. The last time when I hadn't, Daddy had to use the belt. It made Daddy cry. Mother didn't say a word as we unloaded the car. She led Vincent by the hand. I knew enough to load a big armful of towels so I could walk by myself. "Do you see those iron bars?" she finally asked. The bars were black. They cut through a small pool of greenish water, then disappeared into yellow sand. Later, the green rose up and spread out forever. Do you know why the government built these strong iron bars, Elizabeth? Even though I could see that a lot of kids were laughing and splashing each other beside the water, the air was too thick to let sound move. Is it prison? I whispered. Were bad girls and boys trapped in the yellow sand that stuck up between the small part of the water on one side and the green without end? Those bars, Mother said, keep out the sharks. Sharks. Besides the Bible, we had all the books Uncle Wilfred sent for birthdays and Christmases, books with pictures. One showed every kind of insect, and another had birds so strange they couldn't even fly. One had pages of pictures of sharks, all growling with white fangs. If you remain on this side of the bars, like good boys and girls, Mother said, you will be safe. Helen, Daddy said, you'll frighten the kids. They'll stay away from the deep water if they're told to. It's dangerous, Mother said. It's high time they learn what the world is like. Way out on the water, gray sky reached down to touch the green. I took hold of Vincent's hands. I wouldn't let him go where the sharks lived. When I was 15, I finally learned to swim, but only because we'd moved to California and the gym teacher threatened to give me an F. Even when the chlorine is so strong it burns, I keep my eyes open. Thanks.